Time for Reconstruction Part II. Everyone's favorite time period in American history, Reconstruction. From a continuation of Part 1, radical Reconstruction was discussed. Again, historians remember radical Reconstruction as this incredibly left-wing ideology, or what we would call a liberal point of view today. That the Republicans, the idea that the Republicans want to go into the South and just rebuild the South to make it a counterpart to the North, to kind of spill in industrialism and to end the era of serfdom and slavery. This is what Republicans want. They want to, again, in simple terms, they want to punish the Confederates for the Civil War, for committing treason and rebelling against the United States and causing this war that cost all these lives and destruction. They want to punish these white Southerners again in some form, some fashion or another. And, you know, going back to the early Part 1 presentation, we talked about Reconstructionists like Thaddeus Stevens, Republicans who wanted to punish the white Southerners by removing their slaves, by removing their land from their possession and giving it to their former slaves. And this was deemed radical. And we have these phases of radical Reconstruction. And ultimately, the Reconstruction Act of 1867 is part of what we call radical Reconstruction. This law required the southern states rebuild their state constitutions. Every state has a state constitution. The southern states have to throw their old ones out, the ones they made pre-Confederacy, the ones they may have updated during the Confederacy when they were part of the so-called Confederate States of America. And you have to recreate your state constitution before you can be readmitted. This is part of the Reconstruction Act of 1867. So this is a law that the Republicans pass in Congress in Washington, D.C., and this is a law mandated over the southern states. They can't vote. They can't block constitutional amendments like the 14th and 15th Amendments until they, redraw their state constitutions. Only then can they be readmitted to democracy. Of course, the Democrats in the South, Democrats like Andrew Johnson, this is all fueling the fire that kind of breaks out into a full-blown storm. By 1868, over the Christmas holiday, Andrew Johnson's fighting internally terribly with Lincoln's old cabinet. Andrew Johnson inherits Lincoln's cabinet. So Johnson's surrounded by all these Republicans, again, people he deemed radical. And President Andrew Johnson is going to attempt to fire Edwin Stanton, a man who was Secretary of War at the time and was Secretary of War during the Civil War, kind of one of Lincoln's right-hand men. Edwin Stanton, of course, refuses to be fired because he knows Johnson's breaking the law. At the time, Congress had a law that said the president could not fire cabinet members without congressional approval. In the same way, he can't just approve them without congressional approval. The president cannot just dismiss cabinet members like they can today in 2026. Today, the president can do this. The law has since changed. But back in the 1860s, this was the law. And Johnson sees this law as ridiculous, so he's going to ignore it, and he fires Stanton. Stanton actually at one point barricades himself in his office. He eventually kind of submits and accepts the fact that he has been fired, regardless of the law. And when Congress resumes in the new year of 1868, Andrew Johnson becomes the target of a presidential impeachment because the Republicans see this now as ample time to prove the president has broken the law. If they impeach him, they get enough votes, they can remove the president from office and remove this major obstacle that's standing in the way of Reconstruction. So Andrew Johnson is impeached in 1868 by the House of Representatives. In the impeachment trial, the process works pretty simply. After the House of Representatives deems they want to impeach the president, there is now a trial in the Senate. And then a two-thirds majority must be reached. Once a two-thirds majority is reached to remove the president from office, then the president has been impeached and removed from office. If the two-thirds majority is not reached, the president will be acquitted. 35 senators voted in favor of guilty. that the president broke the law. 19 voted against for acquittal. The president is not guilty. This brings us one vote shy of a 2/3 majority. So Andrew Johnson, through patronage, jobs, and political swindling, was able to secure just enough votes to not get that 2/3 majority. Regardless, Johnson is not added to the Democratic ticket, and I don't think that was a big problem with him. Johnson, I don't think, wanted to run in in the upcoming election that November. And also, the crime Johnson committed was really splitting hairs. The Constitution calls for impeachment only if the president, it can be, you can find the president guilty of a high crime or a misdemeanor. Was firing a member of his own cabinet any of those? Well, Congress tried. Republicans tried, and they did not succeed in removing the president from office. So this stalemate between the executive and the legislative branch and the government does not look good. And this kind of takes the country's eye off the ball when it comes to Reconstruction. You'll see that this starts to gum up the works. So in the election of 1868, former General Ulysses S. Grant, who I believe actually resigned his post just before this election out of the Army over a fight with Andrew Johnson. It's not something I actually talked about in lecture and class, but I believe Grant actually quit the military, resigning under protest over something that had to do with the military districts in the South. I'm not entirely sure. He refused some order. He resigned. He enters politics. The Republican Party picks Ulysses Grant to run for president in the election of 1868. The running mate was Schuyler Colfax. The guy pictured there on the right. Grant is pictured there on the left. Schuyler Colfax, unfortunately, becomes a huge part of why Grant's legacy is tarnished today. However, at the time, he was kind of an upstanding citizen. He was Speaker of the House. Grant runs against Democrat Governor of New York, Horatio Seymour, pictured there on the right. Pictured on the left, Ulysses Grant, and that's a portrait of him as President of the United States because he wins the election. I don't think this should be a surprise. Name recognition is a lot. Not to dwell on it, but Grant was a very popular figure in the year 1868. He was the hero of the United States. He was the most popular man in the country. Everyone knew who Ulysses S. Grant was. He was the leader of the world's largest army that just defeated General Lee in the war between the states, the War of Secession, or the Civil War, as most of us know it today. So, Grant is very well known, and he absolutely dominates in this election. And of course, the Republicans are optimistic that he's going to carry on the work of Reconstruction. Here's a map of the election of 1868. You can see there are 3 states here, and this is important. There are 3 states here that are highlighted in green, not red or blue. The states highlighted in green are unreconstructed states. They were not allowed to vote. Southerners hate these Northerners who are moving south to establish things like the Freedmen's Bureau and help with Reconstruction. They're referred to as scalawags by these local Southerners. So if you're a Reconstructionist and you're coming south, again, to help, or you're a Southerner who has joined in with the Republican Party, you are now a scalawag. This is what your fellow Southerners think of you. And scalawags were sometimes these people also known as carpetbaggers, who are these people who move south from the north, taking advantage of the really cheap real estate in the war-torn South. And they were known as the carpetbaggers, and sometimes they were one and the same. We have the Ku Klux Klan. Today it's known kind of just as the KKK. The Ku Klux Klan has its first uprising. It's created kind of as a fraternal drinking organization between some former Confederate soldiers in Tennessee. That's early in 1865. The Reconstruction era Ku Klux Klan changes into a much scarier thing very quickly, as it becomes kind of You might expect me to say more organized. However, that's not really the case. The Ku Klux Klan was very disorganized. It becomes quite politically motivated in actually tormenting, torturing, sometimes killing, lynching African Americans in order to keep established some level of racial hierarchy in the South. And the South is segregated, of course, and the Ku Klux Klan wants to maintain that. They don't want black Republicans voting. They don't want black men voting in the South. And they're going to do whatever they can to kind of scare the African American population. And unfortunately, it's effective.